Going to Hancock right now. Going on a mine tour. I'm so glad I brought these instead of my flip flops.
Yeah. I'm a good phone. Yeah, I feel it too. come from there?
Yeah.
I wonder if there's an opening down there or something.
Well, that's the question.
Thank you.
We feel agreed.
Yes, you should. Okay, we're gonna head over this way.
I'm so glad I have it.
Yeah, that's a good breeze. How's the air temperature? It's here. It prevents us from all being gas for diesel exhaust. Okay, so this right here is a chart of Quincy's underground workings. Everything in white on here is where they took rock out. We're not actually located at the tip of the red arrow. It's been slightly mislabeled. We're actually just to the right of it here by this little white dot on the 7th level next to the number 5 shaft. That little white dot is the added opening we just drove in through. The space we're actually getting to see down here today is not very much of the mine at all. Everything beneath this level is completely underwater now. Of course, when they were working down here, they were taking water out continuously, and they got all the way down to the bottom of the 92nd level, which is actually 10 levels deeper than what's pictured here. This number 2 shaft, which is the one that has the big steel building sitting on top of it up by the highway, got down to 9,260 feet on the incline, which straight vertical from the surface is a little over 6,225 feet. So over a mile in depth, end to end, it's nearly 2.5 miles wide. From the surface up here, if we were to head this way on the chart, we'd end up back downtown in Hancock. If we went that way, we'd end up north in Calumet. The reason they cleared out this whole hillside was to remove copper, such as this piece right here. This is 832 pounds of mass copper, which was found on the 8th level back in the 1970s by the tech students. It's pretty typical of something they may have come across. Majority of their ore bodies, not big chunks of copper, but they did have a few big ones. The largest they took out was roughly 300 tons. It's about the size of a small school bus of pure copper. Majority of their ore body looks a lot more like this, though. This is what we call amygdaloid, which comes from the Greek word for almond. It means it's forming little almond-shaped fissures in the rock. On this piece here, it's just tiny little flecks. It's only about a 2 or 3% concentration, but that 2 or 3% is 99.9% pure. Its only major impurity is 100% silver, which is not an impurity in my opinion. And Quincy's ore body is so consistently this 2 or 3% that they're able to pay dividends to their stockholders for nearly 60 years in a row, which is completely unheard of for a mining operation. The only company in the Keweenaw district that made more money than this mine was Calumet and Hecla north of here. They were mining copper at 5 to 6%, so they had a bigger concentration and therefore were able to make more money. By now you've noticed it's cold down here. It's 43 degrees Fahrenheit on this level no matter what is happening outside. Since it's warmer outside right now, we've also got this pretty strong breeze going, which is caused by the air temperature. The cold air is settling to this part of the mine and escaping out the added opening as the warm air outside is rising. In the winter, when it's colder outside, it actually switches direction and pulls cold air from outside into the mine, as the warm air down here is rising up through the open shafts. So we've got this constant flow of air, which is nice because we don't have to do anything to ventilate this space. And the miners, when they're working down here, had the same luxury. They're going to have this nice breeze caused by the multiple shafts open on the surface, some of them pulling cold air down and others letting warm air rise. Now this level's cold, but as you get deeper it gets warmer, and the bottom of the mine is roughly 90 degrees Fahrenheit with about 70% humidity. Well, I mean, it's 100% humidity now, it's flooded, but it was 70% humidity when they were working down there.
Why is it so hot?
Getting closer to the center of the earth. You're under a mile of rock at that point. It's going to be warmer.
Yeah.
The crust is only 5, isn't it?
On average, it's between 5 and 10 miles thick, yes.
So it is really.
down here was back in the 1840s. At that time, there's not a lot of fancy technology for this process. In order to drill a hole into the wall and blast out the rock that contains copper, they're actually going to do things by hand. And in order to do that, they're going to need a drill steel. This particular hand drill steel is what we call a star bit drill or a chisel bit, because the end of it has a star-shaped chisel on the end of it. They're going to work in groups of 3, so one guy's going to hold this against the face of the rock. His 2 best buddies are going to take turns hitting the end of it with an 8-pound sledgehammer. Each time it's struck, which is hopefully every time it's swung at, he's going to turn it a quarter of a turn, and it's going to drill a hole into the wall. A skilled 3-man team like this can drill up to 4 holes to the depth of 4 feet apiece in one 10-hour shift, which is incredibly fast for this method. And they're not using this much light. They're going to use this much.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
It's a little harder to see the end of the drill steel now. Which is
Oh boy.
probably why you want your best buddies doing this with you. I want a big pair of pliers. Odds are the person swinging the sledgehammer is not just your best buddy, but also probably a relative. This is a skill that was taught father to son. These guys tended to work in close-knit familial units. Odds are it's your brother or your cousin swinging a sledgehammer in your face. And I love my little brother, but there's no way he's swinging a sledgehammer in your face in this amount of light.
Oh, you'd switch places with them. You'd be swinging the
I
sledgehammer.
don't think he'd let me swing a sledgehammer in here either. I'm not very athletic. Neither's he. He's an art major. Now the challenge with working in this amount of light is not that you can't see well. Your eyes will adjust to this amount after a while. And they don't need to be able to see far down here because they're only drilling 1 hole at a time. The real challenge is that candlelight's fragile, and if you're not careful,
Oh my goodness.
and this is the beginning of the self-guided portion of the tour. I'm only kidding. But right now you can't see your hand in front of your face. Your eyes are going to have a hard time adjusting to this level because there's no natural light down here to adjust to. You could sit down here for days and never see 2 inches from your nose. I mean, we of course can put the lights back on, and a miner's going to immediately try to relight his candle. Eventually they switched away from candlelight entirely though, because it's not the most practical source of lighting. Tallow candles don't tend to be very bright, and so by the 1890s they switched over to sunshine lamps, which burn a paraffin-based wax oil. It's a brighter flame and it's a slower burning fuel, so they don't have to carry as much of it with them. And by the time this mine closed in 1945, they're using calcium carbide, which when you add water to it creates acetylene gas. And so carbide lamps allowed them to see very well with a bright white flame. All of this electric lighting was put in by the tech students, rewired for our tours. And 2 weeks ago we got LED light bulbs, so it's now officially literally the lightest it's ever been down here.
Wow.
Of course, when they're drilling these holes, it's not at random. And they're very precise about where they place holes, especially by hand like this, because it's so labor intensive. They're mostly creating what we call a blast pattern, which is a collection of holes designed to direct the blast in a certain way. We've got a pattern that's in white here that the tech students put in, which is much more modern. You'd never see anything like that by hand. Working by hand, it takes them about a 6-day work week to complete a pattern. They're being paid by the cubic fathom of rock in the 1840s and 50s, and so they pretty much work at whatever pace they choose, and they're being paid a lump sum at the end of the month based on the amount of rock they've taken out. So the guys drilling and blasting, they're going to use black powder up until dynamite's invented in 1876. They just drill and blast. That's all they do. Once they've completed a blast, they're going to go back to drilling holes, and the next guy to come along is what we call a trammer. His job's to pick up all the rock off the ground and pile it into a tram car like this one here. This particular kind is a one-man tram car, so one guy's going to fill and push this by himself down the narrow gauge track over towards the nearest shaft. Once he gets it there, he's going to empty it into what we call a kibble or a rock skip, which is essentially a large bucket with wheels, and those are being hoisted to the surface from above. Trammer's going to turn his cart back around and come get another load. He's going to do this for 10 hours a day by candlelight, just like the guys drilling holes initially. He's only getting paid half as much money though. This guy's unskilled labor. He doesn't have any technical knowledge about rock or explosives. He's just got to be big and strong enough to push this cart, which fully loaded can hold about 1,200 pounds of rock. They're not about to hire me to be a trammer anytime soon. Now this system got bigger and faster over time. They had 2- and 3-man tram cars as well that took multiple men to push because they weighed so much. In 1901, Quincy adopted a technology known as the electric tram system. The electric tram had been popular in the iron mining district of the Upper Peninsula several years earlier. Quincy was one of the first in the region to adopt it, run electricity into their underground, and that electric tram could haul up to 3 tons with only one operator. So it's more efficient than pushing it by hand. Other mines in the district adopted underground mules to do this job, had animals, draft horses and things hauling rock for them. Quincy crunched the numbers and decided it was more expensive to take care of an animal underground for its whole life than to pay a trammer, which tells you how much they're paying the trammers. Now this system's getting bigger and faster as a direct result of drilling increasing speed. By the 1870s, they had started experimenting with power drills. The first drill they tried out was the Burley drill, which we don't have on display down here, but it was very big and bulky. It wasn't really designed for the cramped underground space they had because it had been originally designed for tunneling. Quincy didn't like the Burley drill. It was too big and cumbersome. It was drilling about as fast as the guys by hand because they were spending 80% of their time repositioning the drill. They tried another dozen drills before they found one they liked, which happened to be the Rand and Ingersoll 2-man drill, which is this one here. This came out in 1884. Rand and Ingersoll's Little Giant, as they had nicknamed it, at 606 pounds fully assembled, is lightweight and efficient. I'm not sure I agree with it being lightweight, but it's pretty efficient compared to drilling by hand. This power drill running on compressed air, which would have had a big hose attached to it here, piping compressed air down from the surface. With this 2-man crew running this drill, they can drill 50% more rock, and they only have to have half as many people. Overall, the company loved this drill. It was making them filthy rich. One guy's going to actually drill the hole into the wall with it. The other one's going to help him position it into place before they start, and then his job is to rinse it off with buckets of water, keep it from overheating and seizing up, as well as rinse out the hole they're working on to try to eliminate dust and shards of rock. They're dry drilling into the rock with this, though, so fighting the dust is pretty much a losing battle. In the 1880s, when this is being introduced, there are no safety goggles or dust masks or earplugs down here, and so all the negative side effects of this drill, the men are being exposed to. A lot of guys are getting sick or injured and as a result dying. The men working with this drill nicknamed it the Widowmaker. But the company loved it because they were making money. Eventually, as they got down deeper though, it's costing them more to produce copper, and so this drill wasn't as efficient as it could be. They started looking for better technology, and by 1901 had started experimenting with the 1-man drill. It wasn't until 1911 though that they really tried to implement it here at Quincy. The 1-man drill does all the work of the 2-man drill, but it only takes 1 operator. That second man's been replaced by a pressurized tank of water, which is pumping water through the center of the drill and out through a hollow drill bit, which eliminates a lot of that dust issue. But it's eliminating a job. The company's not going to put twice as many drills underground. They're going to eliminate half the workforce, and the guy who doesn't lose his job now gets to work alone down here with 200 pounds of equipment. The year this drill is introduced, 1911, also happens to be the deadliest year on record for this district. Cost of mining copper that year is 1 man a week. Not necessarily here at Quincy, but somewhere in the Keweenaw. These guys are well aware their work environment's dangerous. They're also only making about $3 a day for a 10-hour shift. In 1911, Henry Ford starts advertising his $5 a workday for an 8-hour shift. So these guys are well aware they're getting gypped. By 1913, pressure built up to the point they went on strike. The men who were on strike had nicknamed this drill the Agitator, and it definitely agitated a lot of opinions up here. The 9-month strike was the longest, most violent strike we ever had in this district, and when all was said and done, the companies introduced the drill anyway. In order to ease fear about working alone down here with the deadly piece of equipment, the company here at Quincy doubled the number of supervisors per shift. I don't think was what they were looking for when they went on strike. They eventually got a pay raise, which wasn't really a pay raise, it was only to about $3.75 a day, and an 8-hour work shift, so nobody really won the strike, and Quincy used this drill right up till they closed in 1945. Not only for horizontal drifts, such as the space we're standing in here, which originally would have only been 5 feet wide by 6 feet tall. It sounds awful if you're 6 feet tall, but keep in mind the average man's 5'7" at the time. They also use this for stoping, and we're going to head over this way and take a look at the stope. Goes up past that almost all the way to the 5th level. This entire thing, top to bottom on the incline, is nearly 120 feet, which is the equivalent of 20 fathoms. These upper levels are 10 fathoms apart, which is 60 feet, because they're being paid by the cubic fathom of rock at the time. As they got down deeper, they eventually switch over to 100-foot lengths, though, mostly for stability.